Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. It is indeed actual Friday. Welcome to today's Brand Innovators Livecast, all around marketing innovation. We have some amazing speakers today from Vistaprint, from Mattel, from BlackRock. It's going to be really a great series, so we're very excited. I'm David Teicher, your Chief Content Officer, your virtual MC. We have a special guest coming in today from Brand Innovators Labs Group, which should be really fun, so you'll hear from them in a little bit. But just before we get started, some quick housekeeping notes. This is on 24, our dashboard. I know a lot of you are getting sick of hearing me go through this, but just for the benefit of anybody new to our live casts, this is on 24. The main thing that you need is the media player. That's where all of us will be. So you can make that as big as you'd like. You can make the volume as loud as you'd like. That's all on your control. The few widgets or tools that might be useful or valuable to you throughout today's conversations. We have a group chat functionality, so it's always fun. You can feel free to chat alongside your fellow attendees. Let us know who you are, where you're coming in from, what you do, and you can certainly chat with your fellow attendees there. If you're going to be using Twitter or LinkedIn, we welcome those conversations as well. We use the hashtag BILivecast. So certainly feel free to tweet and post along with the hashtag. More importantly, we have a Q&A widget. So you can feel free to submit all of your questions throughout the day, throughout each session for our fantastic speakers. We try to get to as many of them as we can. It looks like our first two speakers are here, so we'll turn it over in just a second. But the last thing I was going to say is that it's not too late to invite friends, colleagues, mentors, team members to attend today's discussion, so you can still do that. And as always, all of these live casts will be available on demand right here at this very link. So with that, I would like to turn it over to our moderator, Liz Valentine, and our first speaker, Ricky Engelberg, the fairly new CMO of Vistaprint, for today's first conversation. So Liz and Ricky, I'll give you the round of applause on behalf of everyone in the audience, and I'll turn it over to you. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having us.
Doing great, David. Awesome to be here.
Great. This is where I bow out, so take it away.
Okay, fantastic. Well, it's great to be here, everyone. My name's Liz Valentine, and I'm the CEO for Wunderman Thompson on the West Coast. And I'm thrilled to be here with my old colleague, Ricky Engelberg. We worked together at Nike for many years, a long time ago, when we were kind of babies in our career. So it's pretty exciting for me to be back here with Ricky. Ricky, why don't you start off just with an introduction about yourself? You've had a very, I would say, long and storied career when it comes to this topic, digital innovation. And I think it would be really helpful just to ground the audience in your background, your history at Nike, at Converse, and then we'll move into some of the work you're doing with Vistaprint.
Cool. Appreciate it. Hey, thanks so much for having me to the Brand Innovators team. And Liz, awesome to get to do this with you. One of my favorite people to get to work with in the world. So excited that we get to share a Zoom or on 24 stage. It's so like David said, I've been at Vistaprint about 8 months now, and I'm here in Boston, Massachusetts, based in Jamaica Plain for the pandemic with 3 kids. We run a below average homeschool, and hopefully none of them make a cameo during this, but the odds are pretty good one of them will. Fingers crossed that I'm wearing clothes in a cameo this time. But yeah, like Liz said, as you said, I've been at Vistaprint 8 months. Before that was at Nike and Converse for about 19 plus years, and which is crazy to think about in the context of you're born, you go to school, you go to kindergarten, you go to elementary school, middle school, high school. And that's kind of the equivalent of the amount of time I was there, which was absolutely awesome. When it started, Liz and I got to work we were in the digital marketing group in the US together. And the word digital was a weird, scary word in the early 2000s with lots of debate as to whether or not athletes would use digital and things that you just look back on 20 years later and go, wow, I can't believe we had debates as to whether or not basketball players or runners would want to use things to track their performance or use social media. But it was the most amazing 2 decades possible. And the things we got to do, from inventing entire new ways people run, like Nike Plus, where we had this great training log and a great MP3 player, and the team felt like there has to be a better way than this. Everyone has iPod Nanos, and collectively was like, what if we put a puck in a shoe and made it send your run data to your Nano? But even things like in 2003, we put shoes in video games, and like there was no in-game advertising model at the time. We just thought it'd be cool. We thought, as people that played NBA Live, the predecessor for NBA 2K, for those of you keeping score at home, like that'd be an awesome thing to be able to have the real shoes in the game. And if you were a member of NikeBasketball.com, an extra, you get a cheat code to unlock the shoe, and that'd be awesome. And like now it's the in-game advertising industry. And so there's just a lot of things like that where you look back at those early days, and we were every day making up unbelievable things and figuring out how to get them done. And we got really lucky to change a lot of athletes' lives forever with the things we did. And that's probably some of the most gratifying things was just, I had the chance to talk about Nike Plus running a lot, or the Fuel Band. And you'd hear people like, it completely and totally changed my life. One of my colleagues the other day didn't realize I'd worked on Nike Plus, and they're like, oh my gosh, you worked on Nike Plus because of the Fuel Band. I take the stairs, and like I never took the stairs before, and because of that I do, and now I live by my Apple Watch. And so a lot of those things were super exciting. But my last couple of years before Vistaprint were at Converse, and it was awesome as well. Like trying to take a product as iconic as the Chuck Taylor and figure out how do you use digital community, how do you use just different digital platforms to connect with people in so many different ways that are so passionate about a product and want to have this amazing canvas for self-expression. But also really just understanding, like at Converse, like we ran literally one TV ad in my 3 years there. When I say one TV ad, we ran a TV ad once. In that, like, we had to make an ad to run once for Miley Cyrus, and the rest of it is just figuring out how do you connect digitally. And it was incredibly exciting. But again, for me, like after 2 decades, as much as I love sports and shoes, I also love small business. And like I grew up going to Park Ave CDs in Orlando and Antonio's, the little Italian place, and when worked at the 40 Watt Club in Athens, and Portland is small business heaven. And like it just became this thing of like, how do you level the playing field for small businesses? And what Vistaprint had from a mass customization opportunity and this global footprint was an incredibly fun challenge. And I'm 8 months in. The last 2 months feel like 8 years, I feel like. But overall, it's been an awesome ride. That was a long answer to your question, I feel.
No, it's such an interesting history. And I think, having spent a good part of my career when I was younger at Nike doing incredible work in the digital innovation space for such an iconic brand, you do often get the question, why would you leave? Why on earth would you leave? It's the most unbelievable job. And so I think it's really interesting to hear why you made that move. And maybe you can talk to us a little bit about what you've been able to accomplish at Vistaprint in such a short period of time. I think particularly what Vistaprint has done around COVID and how nimble and responsive you've been to helping people in this crisis. I think it would be great for you to talk just a little bit about some of the initiatives that you've launched. And also, Nike is a brand that's known for innovation. So how has Vistaprint, enabled you to innovate at the pace and speed that you have? I think it'd be interesting to talk about that as well.
Cool. Oh, yeah, of course. And again, it's interesting. So for me, going from Nike to Converse was an interesting transition because all of a sudden you're not putting a swoosh on things. And it gave you the chance to understand what was in the water in Beaverton and around the world. And what are the things that any company can go and do? And my general feeling is like any company, like what Nike's able to accomplish is absolutely unbelievable. But I mean, I'll use you as an example. I think back to 2005 3 an idea like, hey, we should put an MP3 player on the Nike women's site, NikeGoddess.com at the time. And like Liz was like, sure. You were like, let's do this. And we found an amazing person who's now a dear friend of mine who did a session with yesterday that helped license music for us. Ben Dietz licensed all this music, and all of a sudden we had a soundtrack to NikeGoddess.com with like LCD sound system and all these different things. But it wasn't the swoosh that made that happen. Maybe the swoosh made licensing easier. It was people like you saying, yeah, we should work together and do something rad. And it'd be super great for people coming to the site to be able to get exposed to new music and have an amazing experience with it. And to me, that's one of the biggest things I took away over time was like, just do it wasn't about just doing things. It was about doing rad things. And Nike had a higher density of people who were incredibly motivated to try to go and do rad things. But part of it was because the leadership team had an expectation of do rad things is what we're here for. And the same thing holds true at Vistaprint. Like I met the CEO and like what he had accomplished over the last 20 years from a mass customization standpoint were just unbelievable. I went to the factory, one of our factories in Windsor, Ontario, which is like 11 football fields of customization.
Wow.
And the things that they're doing there were just that to help democratize what a small, like what was once for big businesses can now be for everyone through Vistaprint. And so like you talk to them, you see these uncovered gems of like, we have thousands of designers around the world help with that. If you need help making a brochure or a menu, like they'll hop on a Zoom with you and make a design with you. They'll do live chat sessions on design. And that ability to make these small businesses feel big was just incredibly exciting. And again, the opportunity to help bring these amazing services to the world was just incredibly exciting. And I think 5 months in, we had all this momentum. We are working with great agency partners on what our future designs would be for the overall experience. So as CMO, I oversee marketing and customer experience. We were coming up with great new ad campaigns. We had this ad campaign that we are about to go in production of, It's Your Dream, Own It. And that was aimed about the dream of small business ownership and all the possibilities that happened. And then the pandemic hit and we're like, yeah, we can't put an ad out that says it's your dream, own it. This is people's nightmare. But at the same time, what we really want to be is a partner for every small business in the world that helps enable their dreams. It helps them feel legitimate and credible. And what we realized was like collectively, like as a leadership team, as my marketing experience leadership team was just like, you can't be someone's partner if you're only a partner in good times.
Yeah. And
just because we had all these plans that went out the window didn't mean anyone, like small businesses needed help. And so we broke the glass immediately. And it was about 2 months ago. And we're like, first thing we need to do is turn our social channels into everything COVID-19 related to help take best practices or emerging practices or just threads of an idea from one place and share it to others and use the Vistaprint stamp of legitimacy to say, hey, here's a restaurant in Seattle that's shifted to takeout. You might want to shift to takeout. You might want to start selling gift cards. Because as this thing was spreading, there was an information imbalance. And so just by trying to give that real time, we are going to use our platform to share what other people are doing was super important. In addition, we said, hey, anyone that works at Vistaprint, your job is to help small businesses. And so we have open office hours live where a couple times a week, our PR team or our digital team or our search engine optimization team will go and just work with small business owners to help give them the advice they need to help survive in this time. Our team that handles all of our product design, like they did 4 months of work in a month getting just thousands of COVID-19 templates out the door for social distancing signs, sticker decals, like things that help businesses operate the way they needed to go and operate. But what we also realized is that small businesses were going to need someone that was going to be able to drive an awareness and advocacy for them. And we're not alone in this. A lot of companies had the same realization. We said we should have a telethon for small businesses. This is a catastrophe for them. I was like, oh, it'll be easy. We'll just go work with a charity on it. And you realize there's no small business charity globally or in the U.S. And so we figured out how to start a small business charity in partnership with the U.S. Chamber Foundation. It donated $1 million to get the charity started. We distributed over 300 grants of about $5,000 to small businesses in economically distressed areas. So 3 to 20 person small businesses. We took those factories in Windsor that were making, and you use that charity as a foundation for lots of efforts going forward. We took those factories in Windsor that were making banners and realized we could make plastic medical shields through the same machinery. So we started making medical shields. We donated 100,000 of them to hospitals in smaller communities in the U.S. and Europe. And all that was in a month. And like, it was just this crazy, it's been a crazy intense time. But even on top of that, like, we then realized on April 1st that like the same supply chain we had, that like getting masks accessible to everyone in the world was going to be absolutely critical. And so from April 1st, we kicked off the project, and 22 days later, we launched an entire new mask site in 9 countries with masks, high-quality masks. I have one sample here, where basically the ability to have a customizable mask with great design, with replaceable filter system and adjustable ear loops was a critical thing, as a lot of people are buying masks from their neighbors or on Etsy, and any mask is better than no mask. But being able to try to offer at the scale that Vistaprint could deliver, a great performant mask was critical. And now we're working on licensing agreements and artist collaborations, because we feel like one of the most important things for a small business is not having to worry every time the door opens whether or not someone's going to have a mask on. And that ability to know masks, someone's helping try to make masks be normalized, accessible, potentially even cool over time, so that a small business down the street can rest comfortably that their employees that the customer's employees will all take the right measures. It was a critical thing for us. And so, but again, we did that in 22 days. And like that in old times would have taken 6 months of debate probably to figure out, well, where does it fit on the concept map? And like, you just don't have an opportunity. And I think that's the most gratifying thing, is the passionate people realize it's game time. Like, if you don't deliver results now, if you don't deliver value now, then what are you doing to be a partner?
Mark Reed, who's WPP's CEO, has been quoted in saying that he's seen 10 years of innovation happen in 2 weeks within WPP. And it's just been amazing how nimble and responsive every kind of agency and operating company within WPP has been. And I think you're living that as well. I'm curious how, if your organizational structure had to change to enable the speed that you've operated in, like what do you think are some of the biggest enablers in you to execute so well and so quickly?
It's a great question. I think in order to move so quickly, we've had to flatten the organization quite a bit. And that doesn't mean try to disempower people, but more make it so that you, like, I meet with our CEO 3 times a day at this point. Like, me and my leadership team, we meet before once a week, now every day at 4:30. Like, because anything we can do to help people go faster, like, forget creative reviews, we got a Slack channel for it. And and I think it's not that those things are previously or bad, and you want people to be able to craft things. And I don't want to be like progress over perfection, but it's more anything that gets in the way blocker wise, we remove as fast as humanly possible now. And I think that's something that I don't know how long that can last for, because it's not exactly the most sustainable model. But in the middle of a crisis, the last thing you want is someone, and I'm sure if anyone from my team's watching, they're like, well, now I need to, like, why didn't you respond to that Slack for 3 hours? But like, you don't want to have someone have to wait a week for a meeting, because a week is a month right now. And I think that's something that, like, structurally, we shifted into work from home pretty quickly. except for at our factories. Our factories did an amazing job of figuring out the right social distancing measure and cleaning measures and all aspects of that. But I think there's no perfect answer other than I consider ourselves really lucky to have a team that's so passionate and an audience that is like, you never want to see someone's dreams get crushed in this pandemic. Yeah. And it's nice to be able to work on meaningful work right now where you know that you're just trying to save as many small businesses as you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about how partnerships have helped with innovation versus the things you realize you just have to do on your own? I know you kind of have a mix, and I'm curious for you to talk a little bit about the partnership side of things.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting on it's a couple different versions of partnerships. Vistaprint, before I started working there, was a pretty internally focused company from how work was done. And there's nothing wrong with work being done internally, but I do think that great partners like yourselves, we're doing a lot of work with Work & Co. right now, this mask site, people like Tom Briss or Callan or other people we've been engaging with on things have been really focused on helping us push to the edges and understanding how we make sure that we don't rinse, wash, repeat. But rather we evaluate, or we're constantly evaluating what is the best way to deliver high impact to customers. I was saying this to my team yesterday, I've never read an app store review that says this app crashes all the time and is not very good, but it was built with an agency, so 5 stars. Or vice versa. This app is awful. It's so ugly. It doesn't work. But 5 stars for being built internally. It's a very artificial, from a delivering customer value standpoint.
Yeah.
Internal, external is a really arbitrary construct. In my mind, that doesn't say, working with an agency is never, in my mind, if you are an ad director, a communications director inside Vistaprint, you own the communications we do. How you deliver the best communications possible, by any means necessary. The greatest partners possible, internal, but all that matters is excellence. And don't be an ass, deliver amazing results. Everything else is negotiable. And I think that's something that's, from a partnership standpoint, I don't think we would have been able to deliver this mask site as fast if we weren't working with external partners that had the same motivation as that we did. And we worked with, and I think that's just something that, again, there's no perfect playbook there, but that's one that I'm a big believer in, the power of external thought partners and to push us forward. But on the other side of partnership that's been really interesting is I've spent more time in the last month talking to other companies that work with small businesses, where we all are a timeshare on the relationship with a lot of small business owners. Be it a Square, a GoDaddy, MailChimp, Wix, you talk to a small business owner, it's oh my gosh, I love Vistaprint and Canva and Wix. I swear by the 3 of you all. Yeah. And so I think a lot of the conversations that I've been having is how do we coalition build as these companies that work to serve small businesses, understanding that we serve different portions of the small business consumer, and make sure that we're not confusing the world for them, but rather helping try to push in the same direction. It's still a work in progress, but I'll be a little bit late today to a weekly small business coalition call we have where we we have areas we'll compete on, but for the most part, our goal is how do we actually come up with great partnerships right now to make small business owners' lives easier versus being you have to choose which one of us do you want to have be your partner. Yeah. It's up to you. Only choose one. And so it's but I think it's again, it's something that even starting the small business charity with the chamber, with the U.S. Chamber Foundation, maybe we could have figured out how to do it by ourselves. Yeah. But we went way faster by figuring how to partner with them and with way more of a built-in footprint across the U.S. than we would have had of going at it by ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good segue. It's one of the things I'm having a lot of conversations with my teams around, while this has been really challenging, probably the biggest mistake we could make is when all is said and done, we just go back to operating exactly as we did prior to COVID, right? So, so we're starting to really think through what are the things that we want to retain, what are the behaviors and the attitudes and the operational, ways of working that we want to retain, and what didn't we like, right? What do we want to shed and just not replicate? So I'd love to get your point of view on that as my next call is to hop on the phone with my teams to start that conversation. Like, what are some of the ways of working and behaviors that you don't want to lose coming out of this? And what would you actually let go?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I feel like every month is a different step on the journey. Like, I miss whiteboards.
Yeah.
Like, I don't miss the office. I miss whiteboards.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think more regular conversation where you're not waiting to have the perfect answer, but trying to coalition build together the right solution is something I hope stays.
Yep.
I think the hours can be tough right now. I used to have a rule of thumb that was I would never get back to the office. I could start work the next day, but never back into office. Like I consider myself to have took an L if I was back in the office within 12 hours of leaving.
Yep. Yeah.
And so if I left at 7:30 at night and if I was there before 7:30 the next day, I was taking an L. That's kind of gone away in this environment because the office is like, so like that wouldn't mean I wouldn't be like on my phone or like on my computer, but like, hey, if I'm going to stay until 8, don't get in there before then. Now it's like there is no distinction in your house, and so it creates combine that with the days being weeks and weeks months, and like to me like the ability to have more different types of work environments. I'd like to see like there's a company Breather that at Converse we used all the time because we didn't have a ton of conference rooms, and Breather's this company in New York and Boston and Montreal I think where like, you could just rent amazing conference rooms throughout cities. And I daydream sometimes of being able to go to an amazing conference room with a really large whiteboard, and that'd be really nice. Like a whiteboard and some Post-it notes would go a really long way sometimes. Zoom and Slack are great for some things.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ideas Board, great website for Post-it note remote exercises. But yeah, again, but I think the notion of like we're all in this together versus incredible hierarchy is hopefully something that stays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I also think just a real like I don't know like I think the thing that was one of the more interesting things of going from Nike to Converse was like a Nike, your calendar was made for you of like it's the Olympics, it's a World Cup, it's All-Star Weekend, it's start of season, it's the finals, and you had to get ready for those things. At Converse, it was interesting because you're like the Chuck was always on. So how do you motivate people to go and create moments where you could go and rally? I think that's one of the things, again, I've been at Vistaprint about 8 months now, figuring out what are those moments. Holiday is a big moment for like holiday is a moment of like, everyone has to have their A game for it. This has created you have to have it's tough to deliver your A game right now, but you have to have it because it is game time every day right now and trying to help small businesses. So I think some of those aspects of the urgency, I hope stay, but maybe dial back just a little bit.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm with you on that. And then maybe I'm going to ask you one more question, then we'll jump to Q&A. So you've talked a lot about some, fast, nimble things you've done. Can you talk a little bit about where your head is at or where your organization is at? Like, is there space to think about long-term innovation, long-term evolution of your business and your brand? Or are you just kind of just looking at what's in front?
I would say we've spent more time on the long term than we have the short term. Not everyone, like a lot of people are just focused on the short term, but as a leadership team, like it's amazing how many great productive sessions that have led to productive, like putting things in action that are about the next 3 years that we've been able to do in the last 2 months.
Interesting.
And I think a lot of it is because, like, this was amazing. Like, it's a forcing mechanism that things are, of course, like, things that we knew would change over time changed faster.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, you can't not re-examine everything. And when you find a place where, like, I look at that mask site, and what I really see is building blocks for the future of how we're going to connect with people as a company focused on delivering great design to delivering great design. Then the feeling of being part of a community and partnerships is a critical part of it.
Yeah.
Like, how, like, us starting a charity was not about us just starting a charity. It's us figuring out how do we directly connect to small businesses every single day. I mean, early on I was saying at my time at Vistaprint, like, Nike had athletes, Spotify has musicians, we have small businesses. And if we can't have direct connections to them, then how are we going to serve them? And this has been an incredible forcing mechanism to have those direct connections to small businesses that only will lead to building blocks for many years forward. So, like, I don't know, I couldn't be more excited for where we'll be in 2 years. And I feel like we've been able to, it's interesting, if I were to go back in time to the financial crisis in 2008, 2009, like, Nike leadership realized at that moment that was time to step on a gas pedal on all things Nike Plus.
Yeah.
Like, the ability to have a direct relationship about both from a commercial standpoint, how do you sell shoes most effectively, but, like, how do you become so much more in an athlete's life? Like, Nike Plus was really cool from 2006 to 2009. 2009 was when it was like, nope, this is the future of our company.
Yeah.
And that was in, like, the bottom of like massive reorg, restructuring. Like, it was time to go on the offense at the same time.
Yeah. Well, you often find yourselves in organizations that that have a high risk threshold, right? I mean, innovation often means taking risk, and it sounds like you're in an organization where you're not hitting a lot of no. You're in a place that is kind of ready to take those leaps and to use this moment of time to really innovate around the business model and the brand. So, so that's, you know, pretty perfect for Ricky Engelberg, as I know.
Yeah. It's been, in that regard, yes, it works out pretty nicely.
Yeah, that's
for
awesome.
someone that enjoys stepping on the gas pedal.
Yeah.
Vistaprint's the company. Vistaprint and Cimpress, the parent company. Again, figuring out a supply chain for masks around the world in 22 days did not involve many times pumping the brake.
Yep. Very cool. So should we jump over to some Q&A?
Sure.
Okay, great.
See what we got.
All right, let's see what we got. So I'm gonna throw some questions at you, Ricky. So the first one here, how have you managed your team remotely? Any tips or advice on how to effectively manage and collaborate in the work from home era?
You know, I think it's evolving, and I got a shout out to, like, I have people on my team who do an amazing job. There's our VP of go-to-market and brand. She has a 8:30 call with 50 people around the world every day now for the last 7 weeks.
Wow.
Like, there's just a lot of trying to make sure that you're not waiting for perfection of communication, but, like, we have done all employee meetings. What was a month before, we're now doing every 2 weeks. Like, we did a Q&A yesterday for the 300 people in my org, where we don't have all the answers, but just making sure people understand where we are in the process has been so important. I also think it's been a really nice opportunity to give people chances to step up. We're doing some licensing stuff right now, and one of the people driving licensing for the mask, like, super sharp, has never worked in licensing before. No reason she can't be an expert in it in a month. And giving the right support system to make sure that they can succeed, but making sure that you're don't forget to take risks on people right now as well. Because, but it's tough. I mean, I couldn't tell you what's the perfect, like, what I said to people yesterday was, like, whatever you need to do to find a right balance, like, all I care about is that you have a well-balanced, happy life, and that you deliver the results you need to do for work. What time you deliver those results, I don't care. Like, if working from 10 o'clock at night to 4 in the morning is the thing that's going to make you get balanced, because whatever your situation at home might be, more power to you. And I think just making sure that, like people don't feel embarrassed by saying, hey, I need to take 2 hours in the middle of the day so that I can hang out with my kids and go outside, because otherwise they're going to have a horrible school experience.
Yeah.
Like, cool. Like, by any means necessary. And I think that's my general feeling is like, no one knows what's going on right now. Like, we can't pretend to be like, oh, this reminds me of the global pandemic of 2011. This is the perfect playbook.
Yeah. It's a great point. That's great. It probably helps you with 3 kids at home too. You're juggling yourself. You're juggling.
I definitely had some low points of nudity on Zooms as our 4-year-old is boycotting clothes right now and not bashful about ambushing Zooms.
I love it. Okay, next question. And I would love to hear your answer on this, Ricky. So what are your feelings about TikTok as a platform for marketing?
You know, I think it has so much potential, and a good friend of mine just went to be head of marketing there for North America, and I think so much of it is just figuring out what is the best way to exist in the platform. I think if I look back at previous platforms, we built an unbelievable presence inside Facebook when I was at Nike for like 2010, like for against all of our categories. And the biggest thing to remember on any of those platforms, be it Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, so on and so forth, is you are renting. Mm-hmm. And make sure that you never forget that you are renting in someone else's house. And that someone else's house is both the community's house, but also the platform's house. And so if you rely on the algorithm gods to get your content seen, then you're relying on the algorithm gods who could change at any whim. And so to me, TikTok could be an absolutely unbelievable platform. And I've seen some ridiculously, as much as TikTok is about kids dancing and expressing themselves and all these different and great comedy, and I've seen other people use it for completely different means that are just as legitimate and awesome. There's a dude that does a daily my evaluation of the stock market on TikTok every day. It's incredibly interesting to see. I just think it's important that with any platform, you have to figure out, how do you not look like a narc on the platform? How do you make sure that you are of the community? If you want to be of the community, avoid renting faces as much as you can. Mm-hmm. Be authentic and real to it. And if the platform says the best way to be part of this platform is buying ads, they might be right. Snapchat was a great example where there was not many brands that ever had a successful organic presence on Snapchat. Taco Bell's maybe the one, or a sports team that's I'm going to take you behind the scenes of this game. It was not a platform built for building community for brands. Yeah. And it was tough. I mean, at Converse, I would have loved to have a thriving Snapchat community, but it just wasn't built for that. And they never pretended it was. Now, I could argue there's pros and cons on that, but to me, TikTok, massive opportunities, but it's just important to be respectful and understanding what the platform is great for, and never forget you're renting. Yep.
Great answer. I agree. Okay, so next one. What's the biggest tactic or process from your Nike Converse days that you've applied or want to apply to Vistaprint?
To me, the biggest thing I would say is, and it's funny, I feel like a complete and total jerk sometimes, where it's hey, there was a great Nike ad. And you have the realization of Nike's made a lot of great ads over the years. And then I had the moment of does everyone refer to Nike ads, or am I alone in this? But to me, the biggest thing is dream big and do awesome things that assume that what you're going to do is going to go and change that customer's life forever. Don't dream small. I don't know. It's interesting. It's I have no doubt that, and the biggest thing to me, it's and I've had a lot of friends that have left Nike over the years and gone to other places. And it's interesting when they're biggest advice is just run the Nike playbook for a couple of years and slowly evolve it. But that playbook's a pretty rad playbook. Yeah. Then you look at it in sports, the notion of the West Coast offense's success across the NFL, and how Andy Reid is still running an offense that Bill Walsh built in the 80s with the 49ers and winning a Super Bowl but he's evolved it with run pass option and things like that. Don't get me wrong. But like that to me is where like the Nike playbook, I don't know if there's one magical playbook other than be obsessed with consumers, keep your head on a swivel. But like my job at Nike for the longest time was change Nike, was try to do everything possible to push Nike to evolve and change. So there's not like one magical playbook other than assume that everything is going to change and assume that you have to step on the gas pedal always, be obsessed with consumers, and keep your head on a swivel for what other people are doing. And I think that's the, like, TikTok question's an interesting one. Like, I spent a ton of time looking at Musical.ly 5 years ago when I was at Nike before it got bought back by TikTok. Because, like, hey, this is going to change the way people interact with things forever. And that won't happen overnight because it's 13-year-olds using it right now.
Yeah.
But to me, that passion of, like, what's happening in the world is something that, to me, is one of the, like, don't be afraid to work with world-class partners. Keep your head on a swivel constantly. Be obsessed with the customer every single day, and assume that you're going to change the world with everything you do. Not because you have manifest destiny to change the world, but like you should do things that want to go and change the world.
Yeah.
And if you're not aiming to do that, then that kind of is a bummer.
Yeah.
So that's some of the things I've taken from Nike so far.
Yeah, all good lessons here. So here is a question from Casey Jensen. So how do you see, this is kind of leaning into your Nike days and experience, but how do you see most brands' digital budgets pivoting when it comes to live sporting events with the potential of no fans at events? So opportunities around live streams or VR, where are these dollars going to go? Crystal ball.
Yeah, I think that, it'll be interesting. You have the Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson thing coming up. Sorry, my phone is apparently, apologies. Man, we almost were done with no tech difficulties, and then my phone just had to come in and ruin it. I think with no fans, sports broadcast, I'm watching Korean baseball at like 5 in the morning some mornings now. Like, The Last Dance has been unbelievable to see. I think that live sports is only going to be that much more valuable. I think, but also I think I'm super curious to see what leagues and teams do in a no fan environment to get people in the locker room or to create VR-like experiences fans could tap into for that live courtside view. I look at companies like Overtime and the way they've revolutionized something like the coverage of high school basketball. And I feel like a lot of sports are going to look more like what Overtime looks like, combined with what VR has done. So, yeah, I feel like live concerts. I watched Chance the Rapper for Verizon yesterday on his Pay It Forward concert, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
And, like, I probably would have paid $10 to go see it. And so, yeah, I think from an advertising standpoint, nothing but opportunities ahead as it relates to live sports. Do I think it would be cheap? I think anything that's live, like Last Dance is an event every Sunday night right now.
Yeah.
And, like, I think, yeah, again, I'm bullish, I guess would be the word, that people are going to want to still, like, connect with communities and be able to have things to debate. Like, it's almost like once once health settles, anything you could put your head into that you don't know the outcome will be nice.
Yeah. Something to look forward to. Okay, another one. So what brands do you feel are reaching their consumers authentically during the pandemic? Who's doing it best?
Great question. I feel like the brands that have quickly realized that curbside pickup is a critical component and have focused on user experience. I'll use one example I had heard yesterday that was like Juice Press has basically opened up a grocery delivery service for all of the fruits and vegetables they get to their stores. And you look at that and you're like, by any means necessary, they're delivering to their customers what their customer wants.
Yeah.
And I think brands that have been able to quickly realize what is the broader place they live in is exciting. I mean, I'd also say, like, you look at like what Shipt has done with Target or Target's done with Shipt, and it's been like how quickly they've made steady delivery happen. Whereas, like, as much admiration as I have for Amazon and Whole Foods, I'm able to get a delivery time from them in 6 weeks. And so in some regards, I'd also say that I think the late night talk shows, like what Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers and Colbert, and like what all of them did to be like, we're going to keep making this show from home and not be pretentious about it, has been like their job is to deliver entertainment insight, news, a point of view, whether it's in a fancy studio or in someone's attic, and not getting hung up on it can't be in a fancy studio, so we're not going to do it, to me is incredibly awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so probably one or two more, and then I have some funny comments to share with you. So this is coming from Samuel Edmondson. So Ricky, what's top of mind for Vistaprint from an advertising standpoint? So what's next for you from an ad standpoint?
I mean, I think figuring out how to get back into advertising again, finding that right balance of brand growth and performance marketing, and really understanding like what metrics hold true from a year ago versus what is in this new world. Like we've had a lot of incredible conversations on return on ad spend measurements and payback criteria that I couldn't be more excited for us to get back to opening up platforms that we previously hadn't been on. I would say shifting Vistaprint into YouTube, Hulu world was a big priority before. Vistaprint has traditionally been a very DRTV and search company, whereas before shifting to YouTube and OTT type platforms is a big priority. It is a massive priority now. And I think the biggest thing I keep encouraging everyone is saying, like, don't ask when we're going to get back to how it was. There is no how it was anymore. Like, there's just going to be a new approach of how we have to do things. And some of it will look like things from the past, and others will be things that didn't exist. And that's what makes it interesting. Yeah.
Okay. So two final quick ones. Have you always been the master of amazing sports metaphors, from one of my colleagues at Wunderman Thompson?
Probably yes.
Where did this come from? Was this nice?
I feel like, you know what? I could also make I could do sports, food, or movie or music metaphors. I'm not just limited to sports metaphors, but
I can attest to that. Very cool. Okay, and then finally, so you're no longer at Nike, so do you wear other brands? What are you wearing these days, Ricky?
I wish I was wearing shoes more frequently. You couldn't pay me to wear another brand shoe-wise besides Nike or Converse or Jordan. I've got 600 pairs in the basement. And yeah, Nike was like, again, for me, like, it was the best 20 years possible. And it's absolutely like, it's an interesting, I was joking with someone the other day. I'll share one funny thing. Like, I'll hop on a Zoom sometimes and I have to catch myself because someone will go from wearing a Nike shirt on a Tuesday to wearing an Under Armour shirt on a Wednesday. And I'm like, that is blasphemy. You can't, like, what are you doing?
Where's your loyalty?
And it was one of those weird things. I'm like, all right, in the real world, people wear different companies' clothing. But I was joking with the team the other day, like, literally, like, I still have, sometimes I'll see an Adidas thing pop up on a screen and a Zoom will be like, hey, oh yeah, people are allowed to wear other brands' clothing. So that's one that's a old habits die hard thing, is I still, anytime I see something that's not a swoosh, star chevron, or Jumpman, I go, wait, what are you? I was like, oh yeah, that's allowed.
Okay, I do have one more before the team cuts us off here, and this is from someone at the North Face, and I just had to ask, 600 pairs, wow, what's your favorite pair?
Oh gosh, that's a tough question. Favorite pair would be Talaria's, Dunks. I don't know, I love them all in their own unique way, but those are two shoes that I will always come back to as being absolutely massive fan of. And One Stars from Converse grew on me over the last 3 years. But yeah, I can nerd out on shoes. Shoes, jackets, t-shirts, music, movies, and food all day and night with people. I'll go on David's show to just nerd out on that one day.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the next step is we'll have you talking about that on my show next time. Less marketing, more let's just talk about, the nerd stuff, and we'll have a great combo. All right. No, this was awesome. Thank you both. I was going to say, Ricky, my 4-year-old evolved now from the nudist phase to just the commando phase. She likes to brag about it. So,
nice.
There's a natural progression, I think. So, but it's awesome.
We look forward to the Winnie the Pooh phase. I just want a shirt.
Yeah. Yes, we've seen that. We went through that as well. You got to take what you can get, I guess, with these kids. But this was fantastic. Thank you both so much for joining us. A really fun and informative discussion. Liz, amazing job. Great questions. Ricky, we always value your time and your insight. Especially now when our schedules are nuts. I was going to say, we're a virtual work from home, just culture and company here at Brand Innovator. So similar to you, what you were saying about, hey, if you're most productive, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., do it. When I hire, I say the same thing. I'm like, look, if you want to work from the beach, and if you want to work from the moon,